So, last week, Anthony Daniels gave an interview where he says that this new Episode 7 sequel is going to be better than Empire Strikes Back. Now, let's think about that for a minute. Empire Strikes Back is usually everyone's favorite because it was a little darker than the other three. Now, it's not too dark because that was a lot of people's complaint about the expanded universe, right? Later on it got too dark. That wasn't Star Wars. It's not Star Wars if it's dark. What did Anthony Daniels mean by that comment, though? Did he mean that this one would be darker? Because according to some of the Episode 7 rumors you have told me, it sounds like a very dark film. What if Chewbacca has a cybernetic arm? What if Luke ends up being the villain? He's revealed as the big villain at the end of the movie. Or what if the Empire has been in control and been whooping up on some rebel butt for 30 years since the Death Star exploded? That would be kind of a bummer. It would be a very dark film. If this was the darkest film they've ever made yet, darker than Empire, then folks, what are those naysayers going to say? Because see, that was the reason they didn't like the EU, right? Some of them said it was too dark. Well, what if Episode 7 ends up being really dark? What are they going to say then? Are they going to make excuses? I'm sure they are. But what are those excuses going to be? What if the very same people who said they hated the EU, it was dark, we also had people say that they hated clones too, right? They hated that the Emperor got cloned. That was stupid. Luke got cloned. That was stupid. Well, according to these same rumors I've been hearing from you, Luke gets cloned. Darth Vader is cloned. And he's back in it. So what's the difference? You see, folks, what are those people going to say who hated on the EU for having those factors, and Episode 7 comes up and some of these rumors turn out to be true? And they have some of the same stuff that they hated about the EU. What are they going to say? I don't know. I'm interested. That's why I'm saving a lot of these comments that I hear from haters saying this is why they didn't like the expanded universe. Because if Episode 7 ends up like that, what are they going to say? Folks, what are people who support the EU going to say when Episode 7 totally destroys any chances of there ever being a union between the EU and Disney canon? I'm afraid that's what's going to happen. If some of these rumors are true that you've told me, and Luke is a hermit, he's been a hermit for 30 years, well, that kind of basically wipes out all his adventures post-Jedi, right? Making all that stuff non-canon. Or even worse, I hear Old Republic people still say, well, maybe when Episode 7 comes out, we'll be called canon. Yay! No, they're not going to do that. Believe me, I was just as shocked as everyone else when they said the EU was not, the Old Republic was not canon. I was shocked. Why not the Old Republic? Why does that seem to be a difference? Even last month when they made the announcement that all video games going forward will be canon, everyone went, oh, does that mean Old Republic? And they said, nope, 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 Old Republic, still non-canon, will always be non-canon. Remember, I even told you on their website, StarWars.com, you go to the data bank, you look up the Republic, it was only 1,000 years old now. They took out all the stuff about the Old Republic, the Ruusan Reformations, it's only 1,000 years old. Why would they do that? You know, because I understand Obi-Wan Kenobi in Episode 1 said, Jedi have been serving the Republic for 1,000 generations. Generations, meaning tens of thousands of years. But instead of listening to a Jedi Master, they listened to the Lord of the Sith when he said, I will not let this Republic that has stood for 1,000 years. Alright, they can do whatever they want, but they must have had a purpose. Now, they need the Republic to only be 1,000 years old, no older than that. That's why the Old Republic was declared non-canon. Why? I don't know. What happens if they find out in the sequel trilogy that there's been this secret society around since before the Republic? So we can't have an Old Republic. We can just have this new 1,000-year-old Republic, but before them was this other secret society ruling everything. Well, that would totally put a final nail in the coffin for the Old Republic. And what are those Old Republic people going to say, who've been holding out hope this whole time? Trust me, folks, they wouldn't call something non-canon just to bring it back into canon later on. When they say we're going to be taking pieces out of it, they're talking about places, planets, business, corporations, and nicknames for other devices. They're not talking about bringing in blocks of story. They want to go out and make their own. Remember, I'm fine with that. They should keep them separate. They should just keep continuing ours as well. Folks, what are they going to say when you show them the YouTube video from Fan Days, Comic-Con in Dallas, Texas, 2011, when a fan asked a question to Timothy Zahn and Aaron Alston? The question was, what happens if they decide to reboot the expanded universe? Have you heard this video? I'll put a link in the description. But you know what? I'm going to play it right now for you. So let's all listen.
Do you think that there's much story left to tell? And if Lucasfilm decided to reboot the Star Wars EU after Return of the Jedi, would you guys want to be part of a reboot, or would you want other people to handle that?
A reboot would be really, really messy. There are currently 140-odd adult novels alone, not counting children's, young adults, art books, schematics, all that. 140 adult novels. To just say, okay, we're going to wipe those out, especially since many of them are still on the bookshelves, or bookstore shelves. What are you going to do? Are you going to say all these, we're going to stop selling them? Del Rey would not like that. Bantam would not like that. The publishing industry is taking enough of a hit these days as it is. A reboot would be immensely hard to do.
The thing about reboots, we've seen two arenas in which reboots are fairly successful. One is comic book universes, and one is TV series. Comic book universes work because largely comic book sales are generational. I mean, most people will read comic books for a span of years from their childhood to, say, that when they get to college. People who come to an event like this, to Star Wars Fan Days, are accepted. You have to remember that you are not the kind of people I'm talking about. But the large audience are, in fact, people who read them until they're in college age and then stop. So a generational reboot works. A TV series reboot works because 10, 15, 20 years after the series is dead, you have a new generation of viewers. Battlestar Galactica worked that way. The original series premiered in 1978. And by the time the new series was done, you know, that generation was in its 40s and had fond memories that were pretty vague of what that meant. I'm one of them. But the Star Wars universe is being actively maintained by a readership and a fan base that is vitally interested in what's going on, and so there would be immense pressure not to reboot. Now, the other part of your question.
And he goes on to talk about the question posed earlier about Luke. Now, real quick, I'm going to reattach this. It's going to get noisy. Okay, so there was Timothy Zahn saying it would be extremely messy. And he was right. Right? I even told you about the big confusion going on in the prequel novels, the official novels of the prequel movies. They're, for lack of a better word, quasi-canon right now, right? Where some of it's canon, but the parts that deal with the expanded universe stuff, that's not canon. So here I have a book that's both canon and not canon. It's a mess, folks. It's a mess for the fans. It's a mess for everyone. Timothy Zahn knew what he was saying back then. Now, I know what he said earlier this year, right? Remember what I said. That's a man being professional in the business. There's a new boss in town. They've decided to change things up. He's going to play ball with them. I expect them to. I expect all the authors to. But remember, I told you that's just him being professional. I said how he feels would be a lot different if you opposed that question before the takeover, which this genius of a man did. And we hear what Timothy Zahn really thought of a total reboot of the EU. Extremely messy. Let's go to what Aaron Alston said about comic books and TV shows. About it's okay for them to reboot. They reboot all the time. They have to. It's okay for... Where have I heard that before? Oh, I said it months ago, remember? And he said, with the books, can't do that. You have a long-term fan base. And they knew the issue that would happen right now. They know. Well, the late, great Aaron Alston foretold it. But Timothy Zahn even knew what would happen if they did a reboot. He knew about this mess. He's trying to do his best to make peace with both sides. However, this was already discussed years ago. And what are they going to say when you show them that video? Folks, what are they going to say when they see the numbers to James Luceno's new book, Tarkin? Remember Tarkin had Darth Vader on the cover too? Yeah. Debuted at 121. Thank goodness USA Today does 150, right? Because if they did the top 100, we wouldn't see any of these books in the rankings. Now, it wasn't his worst debut. The Cloak of Deception, which was the prequel book to Episode 1, that made it to 126. So 121 is the second worst debut for James Luceno. What are they going to say when the second straight time a book does poor in sales? What are they going to say? James Luceno's last book, back when everything was canon, Darth Plagueis, wasn't a main character in any of the books or any of the movies. He was mentioned once in Episode 3. You know where that one opened up? Number 49. Went from 49 to 121. We went from New York Times bestsellers, which was a lot of the post-Jedi stuff. We went to top 50 on the other books, on the USA Today rankings. And now that we have new canon, it's dropped. Can't even break 100 now. 121. What are they going to say? Remember the first time they said, "Oh, it's not y'all. It's not the tens of thousands of people who refuse to buy it now that the EU's gone. It's not them. That can't make sense. That makes too much sense for me. Has to be because they didn't promote it enough." Even though it was the most promoted book since Star Wars Vector Prime. That is a fact. All right? And now what are they going to say? Remember they told us that it didn't have big characters in it. That's why New Dawn failed. Well, why did Tarkin fail? Because Tarkin's one of the main bad guys in Episode 4, the biggest movie of the franchise. All right? Why didn't you make it? Darth Vader's on the cover too. Darth Vader should be selling. He's in the book. 121. What are they going to say? What are they going to say when you show them the numbers? What are you going to say when you show them the facts? What's their excuse going to be? I bet they're going to change the subject. They're going to talk about some other thing. Maybe they'll give me a thumbs down on my video. Folks, when the numbers and the facts are against you, there's only one thing you can say, and that's long live the EU rebellion.